Well, greetings and salutations, everybody. Welcome to my YouTube channel. My name is John Campea, and this is a companion video. Now, what are companion videos? Well, I'm often glad that you asked. See, every day on the John Campea Show, Monday through Friday, we take the second half of the show to take your live comments and questions. However, we normally don't have enough time to get around to all the live comments and questions that get sent in. But if you tipped in and supported the channel and sent us one of those fun topics, I don't want to make you wait too long, so we gather up some of those unused ones and we address them here on companion videos. So, without any further ado, let's dive into it and start getting caught up here, shall we? And we're going to start things off here today with one from Ryan G, who writes, "Hey, John, in the thumbnail for your show for Thursday, July 22nd, why does it say Butthole Monster? Explain yourself. The people have to know." Well, it doesn't. Just so we're very, very clear, the thumbnail does not say that. Now, if I remember correctly, though, I did write that as a pinned comment at the top, hashtag Butthole Monsters, because if you watch the show, you know, we were talking about the Dune trailer, and like Aaron Cummings, who's normally on Thursday, she was like, I just thought it looked like a giant butthole, talking about the sandworms, of course. So that's what it was in reference to. Anyway, next up, an anonymous viewer writes, "Why is Dune being dumped on HBO Max the same day as it in theaters?" That's the exact same question director Denis Villeneuve has been asking Warner Brothers. In theaters, if they need a lot of butts in the seats to make a lot of money, especially if they want to make future sequels. With the Delta variant going around, who even knows if all the theaters are going to be open? No, look, this has been the big thing. There's no way to sugarcoat it. Warner Brothers betrayed their filmmakers. They betrayed them. They told them we were making these movies. These are going to be full theatrical movies. They're going to get exclusive theatrical runs, blah, 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 blah. And then they went behind their backs without telling any of them, without telling any of their financial partners, like not even Legendary, who paid for Dune. Legendary paid for that movie to be made. And Warner Brothers didn't tell them. They just came out, dropped an announcement. We're going to release this on HBO Max because they are so desperate to try to get HBO Max to catch up to Disney and Netflix because they are way behind. They are so desperate to do it, they were willing to stab their own partners in the back. And yeah, it's an idiotic move. It's totally stupid. It's so bad that Denis Villeneuve went out and wrote an op-ed piece, I believe it was in Variety, eviscerating Warner Brothers, like screaming to the high heavens. I mean, no, there's just no way around it. I've tried. Look, I'm a big fan of Warner Brothers. Everybody knows that, but there's no way around it. With this particular move, they double-crossed and backstabbed their own financial partners, their own production partners, and their own talent. And it was a stupid move. And yeah, they're going to continue to pay the price for it. But anyway, well, there's that. All right, next up. Some dude writes, "Hey, John. Like you, I also want to be the person who can say, I wrote a book. So I've begun my endeavor." That's awesome, man. Good for you. "What was your daily progress like when writing The Pride? A page a day?" Stephen King talked about how he does 6 pages a day. I'd lose my mind. Listen, I wish I could tell you it was a page a day. It was not. Writing The Pride was a 5-year process for me. There would be, weeks and months where I just would be on a roll. And then there would be months where I didn't write a word. Partially because of, my work, and I was just really busy. Partially because I'd run into roadblocks, whatever. And so for me, The Pride, for those of you who don't even know, I wrote a little novel called The Pride. The Pride was like a 5-year project. Like literally, it took me about 5 years. So for everybody, I think it will be different. For you, it'll be different. If you can just dedicate yourself to it full time, like Stephen King, that's his full-time job. So if he can crank out 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 pages a day, fabulous. That's not everybody. So you go at your own pace, man. The main thing is get started and then finish. Whatever amount of time it takes you is what it takes you. So don't look for any artificial, measurements that you have to live up to. You do you, and you follow your schedule. Only you know what your schedule is like and how much time you have to dedicate to it. All right. Thanks for writing that in, man. And best of luck on that. That's great. All right. Next up. Great Grabthar's Hammer writes, "Knowing that you're a bit of a World of Warcraft fan, I am, have you considered giving Final Fantasy XIV a try?" Very, very much so, as a matter of fact. I've not played any MMOs before. That's a massively multiplayer online game. MMOs before, but seeing so many World of Warcraft players give praise to it, I thought I'd give it a shot, and I highly recommend the free trial. Yeah, so it's funny you mentioned it. Just somebody told me about this last week. I didn't even know about it till about a week ago. There is a Final Fantasy online game. And I do believe I'm very much intending to try it out. I don't know. I've never heard, I haven't read any big reviews. I haven't watched any big videos on it yet. But I mean, I said, if it's kind of like World of Warcraft, I've been looking for a new game to play. I will definitely try it out. Thanks for the recommendation, Great Grabthar. All right, Thanos writes, I've never seen any Star Trek movie or show, nor do I even know what it's about other than it's sci-fi. Am I able to watch the J.J. Abrams movies, or do I need to watch the older stuff first? No, you're totally good. You can just totally check in. Now, listen, if you understand and know the old show, it adds far more color to it. I mean, it just gives more context. But I feel pretty confident in saying, Thanos, that you can just sit down, pop on and don't listen to Robert Meyer Burnett. They're really fun movies. The second one's a little shaky. I think the second one is Into Darkness. I thought the first one was great. I had a lot of fun with the first one. I still like the second one, but it is shaky. The second one's shaky. The third one, I think, is the best of the series. That's the one Simon Pegg wrote. Simon Pegg, if I remember correctly, wrote the screenplay for the third one, and it's probably my favorite one of the bunch. But yeah, I really like them. I hope you like them too. But yes, you can watch them without watching the original shows, I believe. All right, next up, we go to Tim Platt, who writes, is that where we're at? Tim Platt? Yes, Tim Platt writes, so I binge watched all of Brooklyn Nine-Nine in about 2 weeks, looking for a new show to binge, so I decided I'm finally going to watch Parks and Recreation. Unfortunately, this first 6 episodes were brutal to get through. Please say it gets better. Well, here's the thing about Parks and Rec, which is like one of my top 3 all-time favorite sitcoms. Ann and I will still watch 1 or 2 episodes every week. We'll just sit down, play roulette, like just pick a random episode of Parks and Rec, put it on, and watch it while we eat dinner or something like that. I love this show, but I was not on board with it right from the beginning. I actually started watching Parks and Rec because I avoided Parks and Rec at first because it just looked like a cheap The Office ripoff, because it's done in the same kind of style, right? The Office, Modern Family, Parks and Rec, but it looked like it was kind of just a knockoff of The Office. So I wasn't interested. I had a few people tell me it was really good, so I finally checked it out. But it wasn't until like it was into season 2 already. And it honestly wasn't until after I watched season 4, or maybe it was after season 4. Like I'd been watching it for a couple of years before I ever finally went back and watched the first season. The first season, I personally still think is pretty funny, but it's very different. Like this show for me really starts in season 2. And partially I say that because that's when I started watching it. But for me, it really found its true personality that then proceeds for seasons 3, 4, and onwards. That it really found itself in season 2. So again, I had a different experience. I didn't start watching right from the beginning of season 1, but it fundamentally changes in season 2. I still enjoyed season 1 when I went back and watched it again, but it's a very different show. It's actually quite a different show in many ways. But anyway, yeah, keep going ahead, man, because once you get into season 2, I think you're going to fall in love with it. I mean, you might not, because all entertainment is subjective, but I know I certainly did. Anyway, good luck with that, Tim. Next up, another Skywalker. Tips in like $200. Let me just say this. Another Skywalker doesn't write in very often, but when they do, they have been one of our biggest supporters. And I just want to say, another Skywalker, whoever you are, believe me when I say it's noticed. And thank you so much for supporting our channel. You and everybody else as well, but are the reasons why we can pay people, like a Robert Meyer Burnett and Ray and everybody who works on the channel and stuff like that, and pays for everything that we do and pays my salary and everything too. So thank you very much for that level of support, man. Anyway, let's get on. Another Skywalker was saying, I just watched your straight out of the movie review for Snake Eyes. That's up on my YouTube channel for those who haven't seen it yet. And it was hilarious. I laughed so hard when you talked about the action scenes. Well, yeah, listen, it's really funny. It is crazy how popular on the channel those straight out of the movie theater reviews I started doing a while ago have become. Obviously, I didn't do a lot of them during the pandemic, but yeah, it is nuts how many people watch these quick little 1 to 2 minute, okay, like I'm right outside the movie theater. Okay, guys, just got out of seeing blah, blah, blah. Here's my quick thoughts. And I just give it in like a minute and then boom. It's crazy how popular those videos have been on there. And yeah, but you know what? I think it's honest. I'll never say this about any other thing, but I think my 1-minute review of Snake Eyes was probably more entertaining than Snake Eyes itself. I was so disappointed with Snake Eyes. We talked about, I won't go into it all again. We talked about it on the John Campea Show the other day, but you guys know how excited I was for Snake Eyes. I thought the trailers were great. I love Henry Golding. What's the guy who plays, is it Andrew Koji? I think it's Andrew Koji. Anyway, I might be wrong about that, but he's great in the movie. It's not any of the actor's fault. It's just, man, this was shaky cam and making Snake Eyes the villain. I mean, it was, I was so brutally disappointed. Anyway, thanks again for writing that in, Another Skywalker. Appreciate the kind words and the support, dude. All right, next up. Caleb writes, Don Cheadle is great, but seriously, an Emmy nomination for 72 seconds of screen time. For me, John Noble's role in The Boys, I love John Noble. I didn't think his role in The Boys was all that great. Anyway, John Noble's role in The Boys, or Bill Burr's in Mandalorian, and especially Tom Brooke in The Crown, he was Fang, the intruder, deserves it so much more. I mean, here's the problem. Everybody keeps wanting to talk about this Don Cheadle thing. The Don Cheadle nomination isn't the problem. The problem is that what qualifies as guest appearance, not supporting actor, that's different. They actually have 3 in the Academy Awards. They have 2 levels, right? They have lead actor, supporting actor. That's it. With the Emmys, there are 3. There's lead, there's supporting, and there's guest. And I went the other day, I think I talked about it on the show, but I went the other day and downloaded the procedures and rules of the Emmys. And even after reading it, I had no idea how they choose what actually is designated as a guest performance. You know, some people say it's when they appear in one episode and one episode only. Some people say it can be over 2 episodes, but it has to be less than X amount of screen time. But the reality is, reading through the rules and procedures, I found nothing that clearly gives a distinction. This is what makes something a guest performance. And if it's this, then it's no longer a guest performance. It is now a supporting performance. I never found any, so it's very, very nebulous. So the problem is not the nomination of Don Cheadle. The problem is, the Emmys have given us as the fans no clear understanding about what defines a guest appearance. Because if it's a very narrow window, then maybe I can understand Don Cheadle getting nominated for it. But that's the real problem, is the lack of clarity to the audience is what even makes this category what it is. So I think everybody just being upset about the Don Cheadle thing is really, honestly, it's not about Don Cheadle. It's really more a frustration about people don't understand that. First of all, I've had a lot of people writing in just thinking this was supporting actor, right? And didn't understand. A lot of people have written in just didn't understand that there was a difference between supporting actor and guest appearance, and that this was a guest appearance role. But that's the frustration, is that they've never been really clear with it. So we'll see if they clarify that and give us some more clarity as we move forward, Caleb. All right, next up, Russell Amador writes, Hey, John, more times than not, mind is made up on movies that are on the must-watch list. This weekend, it became a toss-up between Snake Eyes and Old. Neither are doing too hot critic-wise, but told myself your review would be a tiebreaker, so Old it is. And you know what? I feel bad. This weekend was just so hectic for us. I didn't go to see Old. I can't go into what, but my entire Saturday was completely full. Sunday has been, today is Sunday, but Sundays Ann and I recently designated it as family days. So every Saturday, or every Sunday, I should say, we get together with her mom, her sister, her brother, our friend Ryan, and we have a family day on Sundays. We started that 2 months ago. And we really enjoy it, but it's really important. And then, Sunday evening comes after the family leaves, and I got to do companion videos. So I have not seen Old yet. And I'll tell you what, I'm looking forward to Old. I think the trailer's been really good. I feel like the Shamhammer has been getting his footing back in recent years, even though I did not love Glass. Actually, I straight up didn't like Glass. But still, I feel like he's found his footing again. And I'm still looking forward to seeing Old, but I have not seen it yet myself. I hope you enjoyed it. All right, next up. Stephen Grunke writes, it was nice to meet you after Snake Eyes. Oh, okay. Anyway, I wish it was a better movie, but it was great to go to the movie theater again. That is true. You know what? Even though I didn't like Snake Eyes, I like going to the movie theater. As a big Bond fan, No Time to Die is still my most anticipated movie. Well, first of all, Stephen, I know I had a number of people, you know, Ann and I were at the AMC on Thursday night to go see Snake Eyes. And it is great to be back in the movie theater again. But that was really cool too, because I had 3 or 4 different people approach me that night to say that they watched the show. So thank you to all of you guys. And thank you, Stephen, for saying hi. I appreciated that very much. It always makes me feel really special. So thank you for that. Yeah, for me, Dune is it. I mean, going into the year, my number one most anticipated was Quiet Place 2. Because A Quiet Place was my number one film of 2018. I thought that was the best film of the year 2018. I still believe that it was the best film of 2018. So I was looking forward to that. But now that I've seen that, my number one is now, my number one most anticipated, since I watched Quiet Place 2, is now Dune. But right behind that is No Time to Die. But then we got Eternals, we got Shang-Chi, we got Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. We got a lot of great looking movies coming out, and I'm very excited for the rest of the year. So, but yeah, man, Dune is still the absolute top of my list. All right, thanks for saying hi, Stephen. Next up, we got If You Don't Answer This, writes, if Abomination and Wong fighting are not in the actual Shang-Chi movie, will you be disappointed or chalk it up to marketing? I won't really mind because I feel he has no business being in there. P.S. I don't know if you know, but Chris Hemsworth's voiced Throg. I didn't know that. I mean, it was nothing, but that's actually a pretty fun thing to know. That's actually neat. Okay, so what happens a lot if you don't answer this? You know, sometimes we have movie trailers and then there are scenes or moments in the trailer that aren't in the movie. What that is normally a byproduct of is the fact that the trailer companies get their footage in and they make these trailers very early. And sometimes, you know, the trailers companies make these trailers, but then a little bit later while they're making those, a director decides to cut a certain thing out, right? But the trailer's been made. So that happens sometimes. I have a very, very difficult time believing that they would show us a trailer of Abomination and Wong fighting and not have it be in there. Now, as far as your comment of, I really don't see what he would be doing in that, well, you and I haven't seen the movie yet. I mean, for all we know, Abomination's presence in that movie may be very vital. It might be incredibly key. Obviously, it'll be small, but it could be small throwaway or a small vital. We just don't know. So never assume any of that stuff until we actually see the movie. But yeah, will I be disappointed if he's not in there? Yes, because I've loved Abomination ever since that one Hulk movie he was in. I've been waiting for them to bring Abomination back. Yeah, so I'll be disappointed, but it's not like going to sour the movie for me or anything if that ends up being just a quick scene that gets cut out. But I have a feeling it's probably a little bit more important than that. So I'm fully expecting we're going to see it in the movie. All right, next up. Tachi Victor writes, number 1. Hey, John. I also watched Snake Eyes last night and had some problems. I like the action enough to be entertained. I'm glad I couldn't see the action to be entertained by it. That was part of the problem with the shaky cam. Anyway, but I agree that the shaky cam and editing made it dreadful at times. I still like some of the sword fights and the fighting grandma. I love the fighting grandma. I'm going to say I did like that part. The main problem is the Snake Eyes story. I hate the type based on lies, but this one felt worse. I kept thinking, why are they still doing this? I get the motivation, but it still makes him an asshole. Also, Storm Shadow deserved better. He absolutely did. Barely okay. Number 3. Also, is it just me, or did you also like Scarlet and the Baroness? I actually didn't. Anyway, I wonder if this franchise is dead before it starts. I still like the sword fighting, but it's weighed down by a lot of things in this film. Just disappointing. And listen, I could go on about my utter disappointment in Snake Eyes. It should have been much better, but it is what it is. I have never actually brought up Baroness and Scarlet. Now, I cannot remember the name of the actress who plays Baroness, but obviously Scarlet's played by, the one who looks like Margot Robbie. Weaving is her last name, and I forget her first name. Anyway, Samara. Samara Weaving, who was in that little horror film. Oh, see, now I got to look it up. Give me 1 second. I got to look up the name of that horror film. Oh, sorry. So, Samara Weaving, IMDb. Let me see if I can find her here. Okay, Samara Weaving, the little horror film that she was in, which I absolutely adored. Ready or Not. That was it. Ready or Not. Do you guys remember this one? This was a great, like, low budget, out of nowhere, just very simple little horror film that they did. I had tremendous fun with it. But here's the thing. Start Samara Weaving. And everybody from the trailers thought it was Margot Robbie. She looks a lot like Margot Robbie in this. So a lot of people to this day, still when they think of Ready or Not, they still thought that that was Margot Robbie who was in the movie. It is not, as Samara Weaving. Anyway, that being said, she played Scarlet in it. And honestly, not so great. Not very great. And I don't blame her. I blame the material. I totally blame the material. I don't remember who it was that played Baroness, but I didn't like her much either. And to me, that was a cross between bad material, and I wasn't all that impressed with her as an actress. But that it might have been the director telling her how to perform. I don't know. But at the end of the day, when that movie was over, I thought both of those characters were wasted. I mean, they were wasted in the thing. So I, unfortunately, Tashi, did not like either of them, and just chalk that up to more things I didn't like about this movie. Again, I was so excited for it. It's really a bummer that it turned out that way. Anyway, let's move on. Thanks for that, Tashi. Next up, we've got Ryan Launer, who writes, after seeing Snake Eyes, I have a little tip for any directors who may be watching the show. Nobody likes shaky cam. Literally nobody. Stop thinking you're the one to crack the code and make it work. You're not. And look, I'm not going to go off on a whole tangent about this, but we went through a number of years as film fans with the effing, here, this is the cinema camera. Oh, let's do this. Let's shake the camera around. It's going to make the action feel really intense. No, it doesn't. It makes it so we can't see the action. And if we can't see the action, we can't appreciate the action. And if we can't appreciate the action, we're not having any fun. And it's really frustrating because even like some great movies, like the Bourne movies, like they're great movies, but man, they would be iconic movies if they didn't do this with the camera for all their action sequences. Like, okay, well, we'll just take a little break here while there's action going on the screen and wait till we get back to the story. Because they're great movies, but we went through a number of years as film fans where it seemed like every talentless director, let me rephrase, every director who had no talent for shooting action or felt overwhelmed with the idea of shooting action just thought, just shake the camera a lot. It'll make it feel all gritty and intense. I feel like in the last few years, though, they've gotten away from that. And that's great. And then all of a sudden it rears its ugly head again with Snake Eyes. Let me echo what Ryan was just saying. Dear filmmakers, stop it. Nobody likes shaky cam, okay? You're not making it feel, we're drawing with the camera shaking. It makes you feel like you're right in the action. No, it doesn't. It just annoys us. We hate it. In my best Smeagol, we hates it. We hates it. We hates it. I hate it. I have never talked to a single person. Now listen, I'm sure there might be some people out there, I'm sure there are, who like it. That's fine. But without a word of a lie or exaggeration, I personally, and I talk to a lot of film fans, I have never heard one person ever tell me, gosh, I love that shaky cam. Wow, that shaky cam really ups the entertainment value. No one has ever said that to me. So stop it. Just stop it. Go out, get yourself a good second unit director to take care of the action, bring in a good choreographer, whatever, let them go and shoot the action sequences. You focus on story and narrative and character and plot. Let somebody else handle the action, but don't fall back on the, well, is this fight looking out? Well, let's just shake the camera around. Just stop. Nobody likes it. Nobody likes it. Stop. anyway, there. I think I put that very bluntly, Ryan. All right, next up. Joel writes, "Hey, John and Rob." Obviously, Rob's not here right now. "I'm really excited to see Dune, and I love the new trailer. Do you have to see the old TV series or read the books to get a better understanding of this new movie?" No, this is not a sequel. This isn't a follow-up. This is the story of Dune. So you can just jump right in, and this can be your first start. Now, obviously, if you read the books, it gives you more context. Personally, I have a rule. If I have a movie coming out that's based on a book, I do not read the book first. Because then the book colors your experience with the movie. And the movie should just be experienced on their own merits. So I have often gone back and read books to that movies are based on after I've seen the film to give it a little bit more, fill in the gaps a little bit more. But honestly, this is the Dune story. This isn't the follow-up to, Dune 20 years earlier. No, this is the story of Dune. So I think you're going to be totally good just to jump in and watch the movie, and you should be fine. Now, I haven't seen the movie yet to say that for sure, but it seems like that's going to be the case. All right. Chief Martin Brody, nice little good movie reference there, writes in, "John, I absolutely love your show. Thank you so much. And have been a fan ever since the Man of Steel review. It's still amazing to me how many people say they've been watching since that Man of Steel review. I appreciate that, man. Anyway. Recently, you mentioned a big fight going on over at Disney. The suspense is unbearable. If you're able to, could you please elaborate?" Well, I'm not going to elaborate much. Keep up the great work and bring on the filthy. Yeah, look, everybody in the industry knows this. I'm not some super insider. Everybody knows about this in the industry. All your favorite film pundits and movie reviewers, we all know about this. And I already said what it was on the show. It's over their whole premium release strategy. Like Black Widow, put it out in theaters and on Disney Plus at the same day for an extra $30 a month on top of your regular subscription to Disney Plus. Disney itself does not agree. There's a lot of disagreement over at Disney at the highest levels. And that's all I'm going to say. But I'm not the only one who knows. Everybody knows about this. Everybody who's connected to the industry that knows anybody over at Disney, everybody knows about this. I'm not the only one. So it's kind of common knowledge, but yeah, it is what I said it was. It's all surrounding that premium access strategy. Bob Chapek, aka the poor man's Bob Iger, is trying to implement. Anyway, that's that. All right, next up, Ben Rayner writes, Part 1 of 2. "Hey, John. Thanks for a great week of content as always." Well, thanks for being around for it, Ben. About the Dune trailer. I want to like it. I want to like it like everyone else, but I feel like Tom Hanks in Big. I don't get it. It looks good, but I'm not excited for it at all. Part 2. Could you please say why you're excited for this movie? Maybe if I understand more of it, I could get there. Please, John, you're my only hope. LOL, just kidding, but just had to throw that in that line. Hoping to get more pumped for the movie. Bring on the filthy, and thanks. Well, I mean, here's the thing, Ben. Why am I excited for it? Incredible drama, great characters, beautiful, immersive mythology, fantastical worlds and character. I mean, there's just so much to love. But here's the thing. Dune and its trailers are just like any other piece of content. It's subjective. And it's not going to work for everybody. And if it doesn't work for you, that doesn't mean there's something wrong with you. It just means it's just not hitting you the right way. So look, yeah, I think this latest Dune trailer is spectacular, but it's still just a piece of art. And as art, it's subjective. And if you watched it and it didn't give you the same experience that it gave to me, that doesn't mean there's anything wrong with you. That just means it might not be for you. Now, again, trailers are trailers. The movies are the movies. They are two very different things, right? I have seen many, many trailers that I have had no interest in, and then seen the movies and loved the movies. I have seen many trailers like Snake Eyes where I love the trailers and then saw the movie and hated the movie. So don't let your experience with the trailer bother you. And by the way, and don't let the fact that you haven't enjoyed the trailer bother you either. Not everything is for everybody. Maybe when you see Dune, you're going to love it. Or maybe you won't. But that doesn't mean there's anything wrong with you. You know, we all experience it. Like you go to a new restaurant, you put a forkful of food in your mouth. You don't decide if you like it or not. Your body tells you, your body has a reaction. Your body has an experience to the food you're tasting. And just because the person beside you tastes it and didn't like it, doesn't mean you're not going to love it, or vice versa. Right? So, yeah, I wouldn't worry about it. I would say watch the movie, regardless of how you feel about the trailers, but don't feel bad if you don't like the trailers. And if you don't like the movie, you don't like the movie. It doesn't mean there's something wrong with you. Just, I can't sit here and convince you to like something. Right? It's like somebody who tries your favorite flavor of ice cream. If they don't like it, you can't talk somebody in to changing the DNA molecular structure of their taste buds and make them like it. Their body told them. They experienced that flavor of ice cream and their body didn't react well to it. You can't convince somebody to like it. You either do or you don't, and that's perfectly fine. All right, thanks for writing that in, Ben. All right, next up. Casey McNatt writes, "Hey, John, how are you today? I'm great, thank you, Casey. Hope your day is going well. I was wondering if you saw the newest poster for Jordan Peele's next horror movie, Nope. I did. Not much news about it right now, but the poster makes it look like a killer cloud movie. Yeah, I mean, to me, that poster, it had alien kind of feel to it. I don't know if that, I don't mean the movie Alien. I mean like that there's going to be aliens. So, I mean, maybe there's an aliens kind of angle to the movie. I don't know. But that's kind of what the poster gave me the feeling of. So we'll see. I mean, look, I'm not going to sit here and speculate and get into what I'm expecting from this movie when all we've had is a poster. I don't know, but it is Jordan Peele. So I'm looking forward, Casey, to see what he's going to do with it. Look, I still think Jordan Peele is 2 for 2, but I did not like Us nearly as much as I liked Get Out. Get Out was great. Us was filled with great performances, particularly with Lupita Nyong'o. Or she should have gotten an Academy Award nomination, in my opinion. But the movie wasn't great. I thought it was a big step down from Get Out. I still enjoyed it. I still liked it. So for me, he's still 2 for 2. But I hope that Nope leaves me walking out more with the feeling that I had after Get Out than I did after watching Us. So anyway, that's just me. All right, thanks for that, Casey. Next up, Tron writes, "We all know that Thunder Force is your worst film of the year so far. I think that's pretty fair. So what's the second worst movie this year so far? Space Jam, F9, Without Remorse, Tom and Jerry, Little Things, Snake Eyes, Mortal Kombat, Hitman's Bodyguard, or Spiral. For me, it's Tom and Jerry." Yeah, look, by the way, I still haven't seen Hitman's Bodyguard. I think I'm just protecting myself because I love Ryan Reynolds so much, and I was excited about watching The Hitman's Wife's Bodyguard, and then I kept hearing such mediocre things that I haven't wanted to go see it. I still got to watch it at some point. Yeah, Without Remorse, I was so excited about that with Michael B. Jordan. Bad movie. Tom and Jerry, I didn't have high expectations, but even then it managed to come in way below my expectations. Tom and Jerry was horrible. Little Things, not so great, with the great Denzel Washington, Jared Leto. I mean, it's a terrific cast. But I wouldn't say that's the worst of the year. I was disappointed with it, but I didn't think it was terrible. Snake Eyes, pretty awful. Mortal Kombat, I wouldn't say Mortal Kombat was awful. I was disappointed with it. Overall, I didn't like it, but I don't think it's terrible. And I'm going to have to go with you. I'm going to go with Tom and Jerry. Tom and Jerry is just absolute garbage. Just garbage. But John, it was made for kids. It doesn't matter. Good filmmakers can make movies for kids that are still great to watch for anybody of any age. That's why you get the truly great. That's why Toy Story. Kids love Toy Story. But Toy Story is made with such excellence, everybody loves it. It's still made for kids. But it's also made in such a way with the great fundamentals of great storytelling that everybody walks away loving it. Shrek, a big green, Scottish sounding ogre. I do terrible Scottish accent, by the way. That was awful. But anyway, I mean, it's clearly a kid's movie, but everybody adores it. Everybody loves Shrek. You can do something. I hate the excuse, but it was made for kids. I get so sick of hearing people say that about like Space Jam, but John, it was made for kids. So just So you're saying you have a choice. You can either make something for kids or you can make it good, but you can't do both. Those are two mutually exclusive things. That's bullshit. Stop making that excuse. Stop making that excuse for bad movies. Saying something is for kids does not excuse being a bad movie. You can do both. You can make it good and make it for kids. Anyway, Tom and Jerry was dreadful. So I would say right now it's probably the second one is probably Tom and Jerry. That's my take right now. Anyway, the Sock writes, what is your favorite Disney song? Oh, that's tough. I'm not sure. Mine is Go the Distance. That's the one in Hercules, I believe. That's probably a Disney movie I've watched the least, but I think that's the one from Hercules. Anyway, it got me through a period of time when I was still fresh as the department supervisor of freight, and virtually no one had any faith in me. A little over a year later, and I'm still here. That's a good story, Sock. I love it when a song can find great meaning for us. Lately, the last number of years, a Disney song that I go back to a lot when I'm trying to dream big about projects I'm doing and things like that is that damn song from Moana. I can't remember the name of the song. I know the lyrics to it. You know, How Far I'll Go. Is that the name of the song? Anyway, I can't remember the actual title of the song. But, you know, I know everybody on this island has a role on this island, so maybe I can roll with mine. I mean, all the lyrics are great. They're fantastic about looking further and looking beyond. And there's a line in that song. You guys have heard me talk about it. There's a line in that song that is one of that most inspiring. I'm honestly thinking about getting something made and mounted and framed up on my wall. But with this saying, the line is, there's a line where the sky meets the sea and it calls me. Think about, that's profound. Like, it's such a simple line, but it defines the call in all of us to do something grand. And for all of us, grand can mean something different. It can all mean something different. But I think it's a truism for all of us about dreaming beyond what we're doing right now. Whether it's something huge or something not huge, whatever, but it's just always have a vision to move beyond. And then when she gets to that line in that song, there's a line where the sky meets the sea and it calls me. I love that line. Now, all time, man, it's hard to beat Never Had a Friend Like Me from Aladdin. And I'm talking, I love the live action Aladdin. I do. We watched it again the other night, but I'm talking about the original Robin Williams Aladdin. Never Had a Friend Like Me is hard to beat. A couple of the numbers in Beauty and the Beast are amazing. So I'll say all time, maybe Never Had a Friend Like Me. If I think about it, maybe I'd come up with another one, but lately it's been that one from Moana. It really has. Anyway, thanks for writing that in, man. Next up, Suthius also writes, what is one aspect of a TV or movie that can either make or break it for you? And there's none really, not one thing. Anyway, for me, I don't mind bad acting, dialogue, directing, or editing. If I'm entertained, I'll be fine. But I cannot forgive bad ADR, especially if it sounds like I'm at a live concert. Bad ADR can take me out for a second. It doesn't ruin a show or a movie for me. For those of you who don't know what ADR is, basically this. It is very, very difficult on a set, even with all the advancements in technology. It's very, very difficult on set to capture great audio, particularly dialogue from the actors, especially if you're outside or anything like that. So what happens is there's a technique called ADR where, okay, they do the scene and act it out, but then later on, they bring the actor into a sound booth, they play the footage, and then the actor repeats their lines in a controlled sound environment so they get perfect sounding dialogue. That's ADR. When it's done badly, it can be noticeable. I mean, it doesn't take me out of it, though. I'm not going to lie to you. It doesn't take me out of it. All right, next up. An anonymous viewer writes, who was your favorite wrestler who was the full package? Workers who could do it all. Mic, work, technical wrestling, and charisma. Mine was Eddie Guerrero. Eddie was great. He had me watch to be He made me watch To Be a Wrestler back in 2002, facing Edge, but have watched him since the WCW days. Sanch Panza writes, whoops, also forgot my name. Anyway, I loved Eddie Guerrero. Even to this day, may he rest in peace. I also enjoyed Chris Jericho and Shawn Michaels. It's touchy, but even though he had no charisma, Chris Benoit was a good one too. True workhorse in the biz. Thanks, love. Yeah, Eddie Guerrero was great. Eddie Guerrero was great. And I'll never forget, one of my favorite, I think it was at WrestleMania, one of my favorite WrestleMania moments was the two various heavyweight titles were up. And Eddie Guerrero and Eddie Guerrero and Chris Benoit, who had come up through the ranks together. They had been in the smaller wrestling federations. They ended up in WWE, and at the same WrestleMania, they both wrestled for the two different, because WWE has two heavyweight titles. One they call the WWE Championship, and one they call the Universal Championship. Whatever, because they have two shows, right? They have SmackDown and they have Raw, so each has their own heavyweight champion. Anyway. And at WrestleMania, they both were in the two main events, and both of them won. And so WrestleMania ended with Chris Jericho and Eddie Guerrero standing together, holding up their heavyweight titles. And it was a great moment. Now, obviously, there's the Chris Jericho thing. I'm not going to go in. If you don't know the Chris Jericho thing, just go. I keep saying Chris Jericho. I'm sorry. Chris Benoit. If you don't know the Chris Benoit situation, Chris Jericho is a very different wrestler. Chris Benoit and Eddie Guerrero. Why did I just say Eddie Sanchez? I was thinking of the other fighter. Eddie Guerrero and Chris Benoit came up together, had that big WrestleMania moment. And if you don't know about all the drama with Chris Benoit, just go on Google and search it. You'll see what it is. It makes it really weird. For me, I mean, my favorite wrestler growing up when I was younger, like when I was a kid, my favorite wrestler as a little kid was Tito Santana. Arriba! With the, the figure four leg lock. At the time, him and Greg the Hammer Valentine had a big feud, and they were both doing figure four leg locks. But I think the best all-around complete package. I mean, it's hard to argue against Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, probably the best mic skills of all time, and also a great wrestler. But I got to go with the rowdy one, Roddy Piper. I think if there's anybody in WWE history who had even better mic skills than The Rock, and this is debatable. It's debatable, but I would say it's the rowdy one, Roddy Piper. Yeah, he was great, man. I still remember as a little kid. I mean, I was young, but watching Piper's Pit and all that kind of stuff, and he was just great. So I'm going to go with Piper. All right, next up. Mark Amorossi writes, "Hey, John and Rob." Obviously, Rob's not here. "I just finished part 1 of the Masters of the Universe Revelation, and I loved it. Best thing on Netflix I've seen this year. Have you had a chance to watch it yet?" I watched episode 1 earlier today. I don't have any plans to watch the rest. Look, I'm not going to bash on it. I'll just say it wasn't for me. I didn't enjoy it. Yeah. So I'm not going to sit here and yuck on your yum. If you liked it, Mark, awesome. I'm happy that you did. I want everybody to love everything that they watch. I wish I liked it because I really like a lot of the people involved with it very, very much. But if episode 1 is any indication about the temperature of it, the stylings of it, and all that kind of stuff, it's not for me. So it didn't work for me. That's all. So I saw episode 1. I have no plans to watch the rest. Ray really likes it though, and Ray's the one who got me to watch episode 1. He might convince me to give a couple more episodes a try. We'll see, but I'm not really looking forward to it, unfortunately. I didn't love it. Anyway, John Demoto writes, "Hello, Robert and John," and again, Rob's not here. "Rob, who is not here, are you a big fan of the 1990 Star Trek Voyager show?" I believe he does like that. I don't think it's his favorite, but I believe he likes that one a lot. "I know you've had a great disdain for recent Star Trek content, which is still baffling to me. Anyway, but wanted to know your thoughts on this one. Thanks." You know, it's funny. When you talk about the older Star Trek stuff, usually the last one that gets brought up is Voyager. I mean, I'll talk about Next Generation, Deep Space Nine, even the more recent Enterprise show that they had a bunch of years ago. But Voyager is kind of like that forgotten stepchild one, right? And it wasn't as good as Deep Space Nine or obviously The Next Generation, but it was pretty good. And you know what I actually did a couple of weeks ago, which is kind of funny that you're writing this in now? I actually sat down. I had a couple of hours to kill because I was waiting on Ann. Ann and I had something to do. She was still in meetings. And so I had like 2 hours to kill. So I made myself something to eat, sat down, and I put on, I don't know what motivated me to do this, but I put on the 2-part finale of Voyager. Again, right? That, fast forwards to when they all get brought home and Captain Janeway goes back in time to try to save 7 of 9 and blah, blah, blah. Anyway, I remember I forgot how good this was. That was a really good finale. I mean, obviously not as good as All Good Things, the finale of Next Generation, which I still think is the greatest finale in television history. But it was actually pretty darn good. So yeah, I still rank it lower than Next Generation, lower than Deep Space Nine, but it was pretty good. I thought it was pretty good Star Trek. All right, next up, we got Zenith Holiday, who writes, "Hey, John, I work at a major movie theater chain in Canada. Well, there's only one major movie theater chain in Canada, so I'm going to assume you work for Cineplex. Anyway, due to sanitary reasons, we stopped showing movies in 3D, thank God. Nobody asks about them or even seems to mind that they're gone. Did the pandemic bring about the final nail in the coffin for the 3D era? I don't think, no. Listen, I don't like 3D. 3D is a stupid gimmick. It's a stupid, dumb gimmick. I've always resented the fact that filmmakers and cinematographers do all this work to make these beautiful, colorful, incredible images. And the first thing you do when you walk into a 3D movie is put tinted film over your eyes with these stupid glasses. I really think 3D is a completely useless trope. I remember they tried to make 3D TVs a thing and nobody was interested. Nobody wanted them. So I don't even think you can buy 3D TVs anymore. If you can, it's extremely niche, but I don't even think they're around anymore. All the major manufacturers stopped making them and all that kind of stuff. So I hope so. And I'll tell you what, if you are working for Cineplex, thank God, because one of the things that really pissed me off whenever I go home back up to Hamilton to visit my family and trying to go to a movie, they would have 5 screenings of a movie, but 4 of them were 3D screenings. Why? Because they could charge more for 3D screenings. Well, I don't want to watch it in 3D. Oh, great. But I'm not kidding. This truly happened one time. The only screening time of a non-3D version of it was like at 3:30 in the afternoon that I couldn't take my mom to because my mom was busy at 3:30 in the afternoon. All the evening shows, 3D shows. So I certainly hope, Zenith Holiday, that if it is Cineplex you work with, I hope you guys get rid of 3D screenings because you guys, I mean, no offense to you, Zenith, I'm sure you're not the one who made the decision, but your company became a joke. Cineplex is a joke of a movie theater chain. They have such disdain and disrespect for the audience. It's incredible. And they used to be my all-time. I used to dream of a day that I would be, this is back when I was working for AMC. I used to dream and daydream about when I do move back to Canada that I would love to go and work for Cineplex. Because that's my theater chain, man. That's the movie theater. It was Cineplex theaters that I grew and developed my love of the movies, was in Cineplex theaters. In the earlier days, it was Famous Players, but then, them and Cineplex kind of merged. And anyway, it was in Cineplex theaters that I developed my love of movies. I always wanted to. Then I started going back to Canada after being away for a few years, going back and just noticing them doing all these horrible practices that really turned me off them. And I really hope that is gone. And I hope they have started to get their act together, but that's because I want to love Cineplex again, man. I really do. That's my home, is in Cineplex theaters. The Silver City Theater, the Cineplex Silver City in Ancaster, Ontario, man. I have spent many hours of my life in that theater, and it's still the one I want to go to when I go visit. I just hope they improve. All right, next up. Zero Cool writes, I was hoping Haley Lou Richardson would get the Batgirl role. I loved her work, especially in Columbus. That's the one with John Cho. Right? Anyway, it is one of my all-time favorite films. It's a soul-searching film, much like Lost in Translation. Have you seen this film? If so, what are your thoughts? Thanks. It's a nice little movie. But you know what? She was also in this one, was it called 6 Feet Apart or 5 Feet Apart? I think it was 5 Feet Apart. It didn't get a lot of love. I actually liked 5 Feet Apart more than most people did. Now, listen, as far as you were hoping she got it, I wasn't hoping anybody would get it because I don't know if they're right for the role or not. You know, everybody, when like a superhero role comes up, they try to pick actors to be in it that matches their vision of the hero in their own heads. But the reality is we haven't read the script. Now, ultimately, they went with Leslie Grace from In the Heights, and she was amazing in the Heights, like absolutely fantastic. So they went with her. So I'm just going to assume that they just felt she was the better fit for that role. Listen. Haley Lou Richardson is clearly a very talented actress. I loved Leslie Grace in the Heights. All I ask for these filmmakers and these casting people is to select actors and actresses who are just very talented. If you get people who are really talented, then I'm sure you'll pick the right person who makes the best fit. But just make sure you're picking from a pool of really talented people. The only time I get upset in casting is when I feel like they cast somebody who has shown that they're not all that great of a performer, because that's a tough place to start from. But I thought either of them would have been great. I would have been perfectly happy if either of them got selected, but they felt Leslie Grace was the better fit, and I thought she was terrific for In the Heights, so I'm going to look forward to see what she does as Batgirl. All right, thanks for sharing that, Zero Cool. All right, next up, Dakota writes, writing a script is a lot more challenging than writing a novel. I disagree. I disagree. Anyway, you have to describe a scene with far less words than a novel, and history has shown us that even the best novelist isn't always successful in doing it. Two very different writing styles. Well, that's the key, Dakota, because guess what? There have been a lot of screenwriters that didn't write good novels, that have tried to write novels afterwards and not had very much success. You are absolutely right. They are two very different things. Now, I am neither a screenwriter nor a novelist. I just happen to be a guy who I have written a couple of screenplays, and I did write a novel. Writing a novel was infinitely harder. Now, I'm just speaking from my own personal experience, man. Writing a novel was infinitely harder because what you thought made it easier is what makes it harder. There are no visuals going along with this. Everything, every emotion, every visual, everything going on, you have to put it into words. Whereas with a screenplay, you know, when I've written a couple, and when you're writing a screenplay, you know there are certain things that are just going to be filled in by the visuals. You know, you don't need as many words. All I can tell you is this. I found writing screenplays a lot easier than writing novels. That doesn't mean it takes any less talent to write a good screenplay as it takes to write a good novel. But I'm just saying from a pure labor point of view, it's a lot harder writing a novel, man. I've banged out scripts in like a month, 2 months. There are screenwriters who can like do a full like 100-page script in a weekend. But me, man, trying to do a novel, it took me 5 years to do that novel. Now, not everybody's going to have the same experience, but I got to disagree with you, Dakota. I think writing a novel was a lot harder. I personally found it to be a lot harder. But, you know, that's just me. All right, next up. We got Mike Thompson who writes, so on last Friday's episode of the John Campea Show, you set off my Google Nest while answering a viewer question. Bright side is I got to listen to you talk with Hans Zimmer's Superman theme in the background. I know exactly what you're talking about because somebody brought up, we were talking about soundtracks, and I said, hey man, at least 2 or 3 times a week when I get in the shower, because I've got Google Assistants all over the house, but I've got one in my master bedroom, in my master bathroom, I should say. Well, I've got one in my master bedroom and in the master bath, but you know, I'll get in the shower and I'll just say, I've got one in the office as well. So I always got to whisper this part. I got to say, so I get in the shower and I yell out, hey, Google, play What Are You Going to Do When You're Not Saving the World by Hans Zimmer, and I'll take a shower while listening to Hans Zimmer's Superman music. I love it. But I guess when I said that into the mic, it comes out of your microphone and your Google Assistant hears it. I've had a few people tell me it sets it off for them. Sorry about that, Mike. All right, next up. Simon writes, okay, how about we start a Star Trek New Era, Discovery, Picard, etc., and a Superman and Lois, John Diggle support group for Ron and John Just Joking. Okay, so obviously where that comes from, Rob doesn't like anything about any of the new Star Treks. He and I will always disagree on this. I think Star Trek is doing some very bold, very new things. Not that I like Lower Decks, I hate and stuff like that, but I've really enjoyed Discovery overall. I really liked Picard. I had a great time with Picard. I like Into Darkness, again, was a struggle. Into Darkness had its struggles. But overall, I really do like the new movies, particularly the first one and the third one, the one that Simon Pegg wrote. Whatever. With Superman and Lois, here's the thing. I was hating the idea of them giving this jobber Superman his own show, because they just totally desecrated the Superman character in the CW. Totally desecrated, emasculated, eviscerated. They just ruined that character. They turn him into a WWE jobber. That being said, when they were coming out with this new show, I'm like, I had no interest in it. But I had some people telling me that it was actually pretty good and I should check it out. So I'm like, oh, all right, I'll give it a shot. And I fell in love with the show. And I watched it for 11 episodes, and I loved all 11 episodes. And one of the things that I loved about it, I think one of the reasons why it was able to work for me, even though I hated this character, the CW version of it, was that they were pretending like it was completely separate from the rest of the Arrowverse. There was no references to the rest of the Arrowverse. No references to Barry or Oliver or whatever, or Supergirl, no references to them whatsoever. And so in my own mind, I was able to create this fantasy in my head that this was something completely separate. And then in episode 12, John Diggle, who I like the character very much. Like, to me, the CW stuff was at its best in the early days of Arrow when it was just Oliver. It was just the Trinity. It was just the three of them, right? It was Oliver, Felicity, and Diggle. It was just the three of them before they added like 15 other members to Team Arrow. I like the Diggle character very much, and I like the actor who plays him. But in episode 12 of Superman and Lois, Diggle shows up. And instantly my fantasy bubble that I had created, this insulatory fantasy bubble that I had created, was shattered. It's like, oh, right. So here comes Diggle talking about Lila and Argus and blah, blah, blah. And instantly that fantasy bubble that I had created for myself, this is a totally separate thing. This isn't that same Superman. This isn't that Arrowverse. It vanished. And I couldn't watch the rest of the episode. I tried for a few minutes watching it, but I just was not enjoying it anymore. I just wasn't enjoying it anymore. That fantasy had been shattered. Doesn't mean I'm saying the show wasn't good anymore. I'm just saying now I couldn't enjoy it. And, you know, I expressed that. I said, oh man, I was watching Superman. You know what? I'm just going to remember Superman and Lois as an 11 episode limited series and just remember it fondly for that. Because I love the first 11 episodes. But when I expressed that, it's like, yeah, for me, the show doesn't work anymore now because I've had that illusion shattered. I got a bunch of these fucking man children going, that's a terrible excuse, John. That's a terrible excuse. How dare you say something not good about Superman and Lois? And like, just me expressing, yeah, like the Diggle thing showed up and it's kind of tainted my experience with it now. And I tried to keep watching it, but I couldn't enjoy it anymore. So I'm stopping watching it. I'm not telling other people to stop watching it. I'm not telling other people they should consider it bad. I'm not even saying it's bad. I'm just saying for me, it kind of ruined it. And I did not choose to stop enjoying it. I didn't say, that's it. I am making a decision that I'm not going to enjoy this anymore. No, I tried to keep watching and my experience with it just changed. It's like this. Let's say you got a big dish, right? It's a big soup, I guess, and it's delicious and everybody's enjoying it. And then somebody comes along and dumps some Tabasco in it. Now, a lot of people love Tabasco, and there's nothing wrong with Tabasco. But for some people, I'm one of them, Tabasco doesn't work for me. I really dislike Tabasco. But a lot of people love it. It's a staple. It's got a glorious tradition and history and used in a lot of recipes and a lot of cuisine around the world. But it doesn't work for me. Shattering the illusion of Superman and Lois just being separate and I don't have to worry about this being the jobber Superman. What Diggle showing up to that show did to me was it was somebody taking some Tabasco and dumping it in what was a delicious soup. And while everybody else still loves the soup because most people like Tabasco, for me, it changes the taste profile of the entire dish. And even though all the good ingredients are still in it, you know, the right meats and the right vegetables and a beautiful broth, and even though all the good stuff is still there, the addition of Tabasco to the soup changed the taste profile. And now when I try it, it's not that I choose to not like it. It's just that I have a different experience with it now. It's like, oh, okay, now it doesn't work for me. And there is nothing more frustrating as a fan who we have our subjective reactions and experiences with shows and stories. There's few things more frustrating as a fan, and there's few things more frustrating to me as a film pundit, this thing I see in film fandom, when all of a sudden out of nowhere, people start attacking you because you liked something or you didn't like something. To me, that is the height of being a fucking moronic fuckboy. And you start to, that's a terrible excuse, John, to stop. Excuse? I was loving the show. I wasn't looking for an excuse to stop watching the show. It's just that something happened that probably won't affect most people watching it. That's cool. But unfortunately for me, it affected the taste profile of the show. And I tried to keep watching it, but I just wasn't feeling it anymore. And if I'm not enjoying watching it, I'm going to move on from it. I'm not telling other people to move on from it. If the Tabasco going in there heightens it for you or doesn't bother you from the rest of the great ingredients, great. That's great. And I, as just a fan, kind of was just expressing, yeah, oh man, I had this experience where, you know, they brought in Diggle, it shattered this illusion. It just made me think again about the old Superman stuff. And even though I tried to push through it, it just wasn't working for me anymore. And so I stopped watching. It's so frustrating then to get a fucking moronic fuckboys. Then, oh, that's a bad excuse, John. That's stupid. They stupid. Oh, go fuck yourself. You don't know fucking anything. Just go fuck yourself. Just go bend over, fuck yourself properly. I mean, it's so frustrating to see that, but I'm not going to apologize that a piece of subjective art entertainment suddenly didn't give me the experience that I was having before. And we don't choose what we like and don't like. We just experience it. And yeah, that was my thing. And yeah, unfortunately, it didn't really work for me. Okay, next up, we got DJ Taterskins who writes, John, hey man, big reports that CM Punk is joining AEW. I hope this is true. He's such a talent. Loved his run in the WWE. Rob, who's not here, what is your favorite Star Trek movie or episode? I go with All Good Things. It's the finale of Star Trek The Next Generation. And Star Trek The Search for Spock. Peace out. Well, obviously, Rob's not here to address that. Yeah, I heard, Ann was just telling me that there are reports going around that CM Punk's going to AEW. Listen, I really don't watch wrestling much anymore. I will watch one or two of the big pay-per-views every year. But I really don't keep up. Now, I've met CM Punk a couple of times. I actually had a good chance to sit down with him and chat with him a little bit at Comic-Con one year. He and I were sitting beside each other at one of the world premiere movie events that I was at. He's a pretty good dude, and he was a very good wrestler. So I don't know. It's been a long time since he's done it. I don't know how good he'll still be at it, but it's kind of cool to see that he's coming back. All right, next up. Frankie Gouge writes, for me, Amazon Prime's Jolt is everything that Gunpowder Milkshake was not. Listen, I was really disappointed in Gunpowder Milkshake. It was not very good, and I love the trailers. Jolt was something that's been completely under my radar for a long time. It's got Kate Beckinsale in it, and I'm going to watch it. I have not watched it yet. I haven't in the last number of days just had 2 hours of time I could just sit down and pop it on and watch it. I just haven't had it. I want to see it, though, badly. I'm hearing good things about it. It's got Kate Beckinsale, good enough for me, so I want to see it. So thanks for keeping it high on my anticipation left there, Frankie. I cannot wait to watch it, and I'm glad you liked it. All right, next up. Boris writes, hey, John, I just heard you talking about the originals. I love the Vampire Diaries, but the originals was so much more. Elijah was the goat of both shows. Just the pilot alone, when he walks into that church and decapitates fools and snaps the neck of that witch. Yeah, so this came up the other day because the woman who worked on Empire and a number of other things, the House of Bly Manor or the Haunting of Bly Manor and the originals, was just brought on to be the showrunner for the upcoming Dune prequel series, Dune Sisterhood. And I mentioned the originals because while I was not a Vampire Diaries fan, that was Anne's show. Somehow, for some reason, I watched the first few episodes of the originals and I got hooked. I really like the originals. And while the two main characters in it, Niklaus and Elijah was one of my top 3 or 4 favorite characters on television. Not that the originals was one of my top 3 or 4 favorite shows, but Elijah was an amazing character. So was Niklaus, but Elijah was a fabulous, fabulous character. And I loved that character and the way the actor portrayed him. And I really did like it. Again, it's not a show that's for everybody because it is very distinctly a CW kind of show, but I really like the originals. I really did. Anyway, thanks for writing that in, Boris. All right, next up. Boris also writes, it was a show that was less about love, talking more about the originals, and more about family and power. Klaus and Elijah's relationship is what tied the show together, and both were badass throughout the entire series. Then that latest spinoff came and ruined everything. I never did watch the spinoff. So Vampire Diaries was sorry, let me try that again. The originals was a spinoff of the Vampire Diaries, but then the originals had another spinoff about it's like a Hogwarts. I've never watched it. I gather it's like the children of all these characters go on to some supernatural school, and not Supernatural, the TV show. They go on to some kind of school for witches and vampires and werewolves and things like that. What was it called? Is it called Legacies? I can't remember what it's called. I've never seen it, but I've never seen anything in it and it had a few of the B-level characters from the originals and Vampire Diaries are in it. I've never seen it. I've never been interested in watching it either. Anyway, next up. Some dude writes, hypothetical for you. There's a UFC fight between an Italian man and a good Canadian kid. Who are you rooting for, John? Thanks and bring on the filthy. Well, listen, I am Italian by heritage, but I am Canadian by birth. I am Canadian. Make no mistake about it. I am Canadian through and through. And I love my Italian heritage. I love that my grandfather and my dad came over. I love my Italian family very, very much. I consider myself Italian. Well, I am Italian. That is my heritage. But I'm Canadian. So I would be cheering for the Canadian dude. Good question. All right, next up. Brandon writes, holy shit. Did you see that Vincent D'Onofrio liked and retweeted a tweet? Are we really talking about this? Anyway, did you see that Vincent D'Onofrio liked and retweeted a tweet that was reporting that he was going to be back as Kingpin in the Hawkeye show? If this ends up being true, I'm going to lose my shit. Listen, can we not talk about anything that comes from Twitter? I hate that so many outlets run stories based on a tweet somebody liked or somebody retweeted this. That means nothing. Look, I've said forever that the Daredevil stuff could come back. I think it's very unlikely, but that doesn't mean it's not possible. And Vincent D'Onofrio was born to play Wilson Fisk. I mean, everything about Daredevil was great, but the best thing about Daredevil was Vincent D'Onofrio's Kingpin. You hurt Vanessa. I love him as Kingpin. But can we not make talking points out of things that happen on Twitter? Just because that's usually pointless. A lot of things that happen on Twitter because of things people liked and retweeted ended up being about nothing. Again, is it possible? Of course it's possible. I think very unlikely, but possible. And if it comes to pass, then we'll talk about it then. I don't think it's likely to come to pass, so there's no point in talking about it right now. But if it does come to pass, we will definitely talk about it then. All right, next up. Marcus writes, "Hey, John, I was wondering if you think Marvel Studios would ever produce a film outside of the superhero genre. Maybe a one-off Stan Lee biopic for something. What do you think?" I think they shouldn't. They don't know the first thing. The people at Marvel don't know the first thing about creating a biopic or anything like that. That's not their field of expertise. They were specifically created with one purpose: to bring Marvel content to the screen. That's the whole reason they exist. If Disney Pictures wants to do a Stan Lee biopic or something like that, cool. But the whole reason they exist is to do Marvel material. That's what they do. That's what they do well. Do I think they ever will do something outside of the superhero genre? It's possible, but why would Disney let them? Disney has many other film outlets that they have people more experienced and who are more skilled in doing those other types of genre material. So is it possible? It's possible. I really don't think they should. I really don't think they should. So yeah, I'm going to guess we won't see it, but hey, listen, at least let me say this. I don't think we're going to see that within the next 5 years. What happens after 5 years is anybody's guess. In Hollywood, 5 years is an eternity. But I'm going to guess no on that. I'm going to guess no. All right, next up. We've got Jason Reyes writes, "Hey, John, big fan." Thank you so much, Jason. "I wanted to touch on something on Spider-Man 3 that has to do with a much bigger picture. With Black Widow looking to be the lowest MCU film," you probably meant lowest grossing, "MCU film since phase 1. And with recent news about the Delta variant surging in 49 states and other countries and how even vaccinated people are getting infected." Well, let me talk about that for a second. You can get coronavirus if you're vaccinated, but you are much less likely to get it if you're vaccinated. And then if you do get it while vaccinated, you are really less likely to even notice any symptoms. So, for instance, right now, the latest statistics that I looked up, 50% of adult Americans in the United States are fully immunized. They've been fully vaccinated. Vaccination and immunization are two different things. So let me use the proper word. Over 56% of people in America have gotten vaccinated. So that's more than half. Okay? Over half. I believe they're saying 84% of now new coronavirus cases, 84% are people who aren't vaccinated. That means even though more than half of the adult population of this country has gotten vaccinated, more than half of them, that means only about 16% of new coronavirus cases are people who are actually vaccinated. Even though more than half have been vaccinated, only about 14% or 16% of people getting the coronavirus are vaccinated people. That means if you got vaccinated, your chances of getting coronavirus are extremely, extremely mitigated. But the other number, which was interesting, was that out of the hospitalizations, of all the new people getting hospitalized as a result of coronavirus, over 90% of them are people who weren't vaccinated. And less than 10%, even though more than half the country has got it, far less than 10% of the people being hospitalized are ones who were vaccinated, which means if you got vaccinated, your chances of getting coronavirus drastically reduced. your chances of getting coronavirus and having it be so severe that you need to be hospitalized even more reduced. Even more reduced. Now, this isn't a political thing. These are just the numbers. These are just the black and white cold numbers. So anyway, I just wanted to throw that in there right now because anyway, in other countries, and even vaccinated people are getting infected and non-vaccinated people refusing to take the vaccine. What are the chances that the reason why there isn't a trailer for No Way Home, zero, it has nothing to do with it anyway, is because maybe Sony and Marvel might actually delay the film due to the possibility of another lockdown based on the rise of more COVID cases. Sure, Fast 9 and Godzilla vs. Kong made money, even with the limited seating, but this is Spider-Man. I do believe it will fall short from that $1 billion based on that limited seating, and with more and more news of how COVID is making a big return, I honestly believe Spidey 3 will be delayed due to that reason. Thanks and appreciate all you do. Okay, so let's unpack that a little bit. Number one, is it possible more movies could be delayed as a result of coronavirus? It is possible. It is. But the one thing I would say is this: because more than half the country has been vaccinated, we are not going to see, like in the peak, when we were getting, like in California alone, we were getting like 30 and 40,000 new cases a day at its peak. Right now we're hovering around, we were down to less than 1,000 new cases a day, but because some people don't want to be intelligent, it's now back up to about 5,000 cases a day. Anyway, it's still significantly lower than it was at its peak. And I don't believe we're going to be back at that highest peak because now more than half the people are vaccinated. Some of those vaccinated people could still get infected, but again, it is a much lower chance that they will. And even if they do, it is an even more low chance that they're going to suffer symptoms or have to be hospitalized or anything like that. So I don't believe we're going to return to the big peaks like we were at before. I think we've mitigated that. And the more people who get vaccinated, the more we as a society are protected against that. That being said, this has nothing to do with Spider-Man's trailer not coming out. Spider-Man's trailer is almost still, the Spider-Man 3 is still almost half a year away. It's 5 months away. We talked about it on the John Campea Show the other day. Not only is there no reason for concern about there not being a Spider-Man No Way Home trailer yet, there's no reason why they would put a trailer out now. There's just no point. We've been seeing in Hollywood a growing, even before the pandemic, we've been seeing in Hollywood a turn towards a more common sense approach of releasing trailers, shortening the window between when the movie comes out and when you launch a trailer. It used to be like a year out and they'd be launching trailers. But they've been learning that they don't actually benefit from that. There's no point in putting out a trailer 7 months in advance. Some still do. But they're starting to realize more and more that there's no point in that. So not to mention, not only is the movie still 5 months away, there's still other MCU movies that they need to focus on first. They want a lot of attention on Shang-Chi. They want a lot of attention on Eternals. Both of these are Marvel movies that are coming out before Spider-Man No Way Home. And while Spider-Man No Way Home is technically a Sony movie, Sony's going to want to make sure this all flows properly as well. So there is no Spider-Man No Way Home trailer right now, not because of coronavirus, not because the movie's being delayed, although that is a possibility later on. But the reason there's no Spider-Man No Way Home trailer right now is because there's no need for there to be a Spider-Man No Way Home trailer right now. It's still July. This movie doesn't come out till December. There's just no, let's focus on Shang-Chi. Let's focus on Eternals. Got a lot of good stuff coming. But the reason, make no mistake, the reason there is no trailer is because there's no purpose for having a trailer right now. And by the way, the trailer could drop any minute. It could drop within the next couple of days. It could drop in the next few weeks. It could drop a month from now. Remember, I go back to this a lot. John Wick, the first John Wick movie, didn't put out its first trailer until 1 month before the movie opened. Now, I'm not saying the window should be that small, but you know, they're going to market this thing and they're going to market it heavy, but they're going to market it when it's effective to do it. You put out a Spider-Man No Way Home trailer today, yay, everybody's going to talk about it for a couple of days. And then all that hype will evaporate like morning mist. The sun's going to come up and the mist is all going to evaporate and it's going to be gone. There's just no point. Now, I believe 5 months is the start of an acceptable window. 4 to 5 months is acceptable. So I believe they could put out a trailer pretty soon. We have, again, the reason there's no Spider-Man 3 trailer right now is because there was no point in putting out a Spider-Man 3 trailer any earlier than now. That's completely my take on it. So we'll see how that goes, Jason. But I'm sure we're all excited for it, though. We are all excited for it. All right, next up. We got Phil Costa writes, so happy hearing you and Rob saying Joaquin de Alameda is a great actor. I'm sure I've never pronounced his name right in all my life, but God, seeing him in that Jack Ryan movie, I love this guy. I don't know how he didn't become like a major Hollywood bad guy. Because there's been a few actors that have become big. A lot of movies love going to certain actors to be their villains. I don't know how he did not become a major staple villain in a lot of movies. Anyway, he's amazing. He absolutely is. Fun fact, the Warrior Nun's lead actress is also Portuguese. And in the new Suicide Squad, you'll see another Portuguese. She plays Ratcheter, and she is gorgeous. Yeah, listen, in my hometown of Hamilton, Ontario, Canada, I always grew up around the Italian community, big Italian community in Hamilton, huge Italian community, which is part of the reason why my grandfather settled there. Big deal. And like even in my high school, it was like broken into two. There was Italians and there was the non-Italians. I mean, that was it. But there was also a lot of Portuguese. Actually, on my street growing up, my two best friends growing up, and like earlier, younger childhood. And then as I grew up a little bit more, like started getting grade 8, 9, and then early in high school, it was different. But two guys on my street, one was Brendan, and Brendan is my friend who passed away a couple of years ago. That caused me to kind of reevaluate my life and my career decisions, and was one of the things, not the reason why I left Collider, but it kind of became a spark for me to move on from a situation that I wasn't happy in. But there was also a Portuguese kid named Aggie Cabral. And I remember like we didn't stay close, and I don't know why we didn't stay close once we got into high school. It's just, it's the age old thing, right? Like you're close friends when you're in like grade school with people, but then you kind of grow apart, and I don't know what it is, but growing up, the kid, like little kid being me, that I would hang out the most with was Aggie Cabral. And I remember me and Aggie, we would like play hockey in his basement. And whenever the Toronto Maple Leafs were playing, because we're we're all big hockey fans, but obviously being Canadian, but whenever somebody would score a goal, we'd pick up the rotary phone and call each other. Did you see that goal? Blah, blah. So he was a Portuguese, but yeah. So predominantly Italian, but there was a lot of Portuguese kids around there. And then when I went on working construction, when I was in high school, most of my summer jobs were working road construction because that's the business my family was in. A lot of Portuguese dudes, man. A lot of Portuguese dudes. So yeah, I've grown up with a lot of great Portuguese people around me. All right, next up. We got Suthius who writes, 2 a.m. in the morning, I thought to myself, how exactly does Sam move his wings? Seriously, guys, how does it work? Are the wings wirelessly synced with his arm gauntlets, or does he have an implanted chip in his head that does all of the controlling? I'll be honest with you, Suthius, I have no idea what we're talking about. I don't know what we're talking about. I'm sorry about that, man. I got to skip over, but next time just be a little more, sorry, man. When I do these shows, my head's going in a million different directions because I'm answering like 40 or 50 questions. I don't know what we're talking about. Sorry about that, Suthius. Next up, Grizzlies writes, 1 of 2. Next days are plausible for a Spider-Man trailer. 1, before or just after Spider-Man What If, episode 2, or the Spider-Man What If episode. 2, just before Venom comes out. 3, wildcard, Sony/Marvel Studios will pull a John Wick 1. We were just talking about this. We'll pull a John Wick 1. We all love John Wick 1. The first trailer ever came out 1 month from its release date. I was just talking about that in 2014. I also talk about that in my documentary, Movie Trailers, A Love Story. Go check it out. Anyway, I bet you after Venom, Shang-Chi, Ms. Marvel, Eternals, and Hawkeye, Sony/Marvel will go bonkers with an all-out 1 month marketing blitz for No Way Home. Well, I agree that they will release a tremendous 1 month marketing blitz leading up to the release of the movie, no doubt. But will they wait to start their campaign till 1 month out? I don't believe so. No. I think, the What If thing is cool, but they know not a ton of people are going to be watching What If. I mean, a lot of the hardcore fans are going to be watching it, but a lot of the general audience probably won't be watching it. Like, I myself am a big Marvel fan, but I'm not really interested in What If. But anyway, releasing trailers with Shang-Chi, Ms. Marvel, the Eternals. The Eternals might be a little bit late, but also like Venom, which is a Sony movie. I mean, these are all prime candidates, and it could be earlier than that. So a big blitz a month out, yes, but will they hold off starting their marketing till just 1 month out? I don't think so. I mean, it'd be interesting if they did, but I really don't think they're going to wait till 1 month out. I think they're going to start a little bit earlier than that. Maybe as early as this week. Who knows? We'll have to wait and see. But anyway, great way to organize your thoughts there, Grizzlies. I appreciate that, man. All right, next up. Christopher Rosado writes, 1 of 3. Dear John, Disney Plus is putting out 3 new episodes of Marvel's Legends on August 4th in preparation for What If. The following topics will be included: the Ravengers, the Avengers Initiative, and Peggy Carter. The last one has me curious. The show uses clips and dialogue from the movies to refresh viewers on that topic. I am wondering, what is the chance that they will use a clip from the Agent Carter show? In my mind, that would make the show canon to the MCU. No, it doesn't. Anyway, I highly doubt it, but it's interesting to think about. So over under 30% that the Peggy Carter Marvel Legends short will use at least one clip from the TV series. You know what, Christopher? That is a great question. That is a great question. So basically, for those of you who haven't seen it, this Marvel Legends show, what it really is, it's just a collection of clips of these characters that basically it's like watching a new episode of a TV show that starts off with previously on name of our show. And they give you a quick little video recap that builds you up to this episode, right? That's kind of what Marvel's Legends is. It's a few minutes long. It just kind of reminds you by showing you clips that brings you up to this point. So now you know where we're at with Wanda, because they did one for Wanda and Vision before WandaVision came out and things like that. So with Peggy Carter being one of the subjects of What If, when they do a Marvel Legends thing of her, will they keep the footage that they use from Captain America, the First Avenger, from Ant-Man, because remember, she appears in the beginning of Ant-Man, and just things like that in the MCU, or will they include clips from the Peggy Carter show, which was not under the purview of Kevin Feige? That was an Ike Perlmutter thing. That's a good question. Now, let me say this. If they do use clips from the Peggy Carter show, that does not canonize the show. I don't believe in any way, shape, or form that actually canonizes the show. It doesn't. But it does. They do own it, so they can show something if they want. There's not a ton of material from the movies to use. Okay, I will say this. You set the over-under at 30%. I will say over 30, but not over 50. So, 50% comes, is it likely? If it's above 50, it's unlikely under 50. I'll take over 30, but under 50. So I think it is plausible but still not likely. But that's a really, really good question, Christopher. So yeah, I'm going to stick with that. I think over 30% that they use clips from the the Agent Carter show. But even if they do, that does not canonize it. But I still don't think it's likely that they will. But man, that's a great. You know what? Now I wasn't really going to watch that, but your question now makes me curious to see if they will. So I'm probably going to tune in for that episode just to see if they do that. Thanks for bringing that up, Christopher. All right, next up, Cowboy Bebop writes, 1 of 2. Hey, John, I got to be honest. I'm trying to finish some film applications to join a union. Oh, that's interesting. I've never joined a union before. But is it worth it? I've been so discouraged with life, and I've done film jobs here and there, but I'm getting burned out on film, which is my passion. Thoughts? I've always enjoyed film for as long as I can remember and work with cameras and shoot events at my current job, but I don't want to get burned out on what I love. I know I need to hustle to some degree, but it's just making me sad and depressed. Well, listen, man, look, you are asking somebody who's not qualified to address how to handle mentally stressful situations. I can give you my own point of view, and I will. I'll give you my own point of view on that. But just understand, I am not, a psychologist. I am not a therapist or anything like that. And I would highly, highly, highly recommend going and talking to a therapist. We've been talking about this a little bit on my show lately. We need to get over, particularly men. Women seem to have a better handle on this than men do. So I'll just speak from a male's perspective. We as men particularly need to get over this stigma that talking to a therapist is somehow a sign of weakness. The best analogy in the world is when you go to a gym to exercise and work out your body, nobody sees going to the gym as a weakness. We go to get healthier, to get stronger, all that kind of stuff. That's good. Going to the gym is not weakness. That's going and working on your physical self. That's important. I think going to a therapist is the same thing, but for our mental health. You go into the gym to work on your physical health, go to see a therapist, work on your mental health. And it shouldn't be seen as a weakness. It should be seen as a strength, that you're exercising, you're working it. I think that's important. And the issues you're describing sound to me like something that would be a great idea to go and talk to a therapist about. Here's my limited perspective, all right? You got to figure out what brings you joy. And if anything in life stops bringing you joy, then maybe it's time to step away from it for a bit. I don't know. And maybe that's the worst advice in the world. That's why I gave that preamble that I'm no therapist or anything like that. But it seems to me that if something you do is starting not only to stop delivering you joy, but it actually starts to deliver the opposite experience of that. You start dreading it or whatever. Well, it may not have to abandon it, but maybe it's time you need to take a breath and step away from it for a bit. And then you go return to it later and you found that your joy has been reignited. Again, I am not an expert on that, Cowboy Bebop. I'm not an expert. But I do know that there was something that for me that just wasn't delivering joy anymore for whatever reason. Maybe it's time to step away from it. So I don't know. Again, I would highly encourage you to talk to a mental health professional about that, because maybe there's other issues. Quite often it's other issues that are affecting us and they get expressed in different ways. But yeah, maybe like a mental health therapist might be able to identify the real core root causes of that. But that's just kind of my take on it. Best of luck, man. Get that figured out. All right. Thanks for sharing that, Cowboy. Next up, we got the Sock, who writes, I hope I don't come across as that guy, so I apologize if I do, but I don't understand what there was to be confused about with Loki other than the reality change of the TVA and why the timekeepers were there, but I think those were probably just logic problems. I don't know that those were logic problems, but listen, the whole notion is the whole premise of multiverse. And wait a minute, why is that guy there? And this, and listen, everybody forgets that even the comics themselves, the comic books themselves, realize that things, and I remember me and John Schnepp talked about this on an issue of Heroes once, that the comic books themselves got so convoluted and so messy with all multi-dimensional, multi-realities, multiverse, and all this kind of stuff, that both major brands created big events to bring everything back and made it more simple and straightforward again because they were losing their readership. And right now, Marvel is heading in that direction of really embracing and trying a bunch of multiverse stuff. I think it's for a limited story to tell. But yeah, I mean, listen, Sock, there are a lot of people, people can deny it all they want, but I hear from hundreds of film fans every day, and I've been hearing from a bunch saying that they kind of tapped out with Loki. Specifically because this multiverse stuff and time branches and blah, blah, blah. And it just doesn't feel as fun for them. If there's anybody we can trust with this, though, it's Kevin Feige. And I believe he's going to deliver us something, no pun intended, magical. But he's got to do it being very, very cautious. Be very careful, understand, try to look at what he's creating through the eyes of somebody who's uninitiated and didn't read comic books and stuff like that, because that's the majority of the Marvel audience. So they're just going to have to be careful, man. They're going to have to be careful. Okay, next up, we've got Call of Duty. Call of Duty God writes, 1 of 2. Hey, John, remember this. Probably just mean you. You remember this, and just when he had fooled the crowd and swore he wouldn't fight, we rocked this bet with a 12-inch cut called Disco Kryptonite. Well, Superman looked up at me. He said, "You rock." So naturally, what song and group, John? I have no fucking idea. I have no idea what you're talking about. 2 of 2. I know in your breakdancing days, John, and probably on your hidden VHSs, you're dancing to that song. Now, I don't even know what that song is, to be honest with you. And maybe Run DMC. Oh, dude, I know all of Run DMC. Houdini or Eric B. Oh, don't forget Public Enemy. Don't forget, Cool Mo D. Cool Mo D. I miss Eric B. And don't forget Rakim. I saw Run DMC and Beastie Boys together, and it was awesome. I'll listen to mixes from YouTube. Love the show. Well, thank you so much. One of my favorite of that era concerts and live shows that memorable to me was Public Enemy. Flavor Flav is bouncing around with the clock around his neck. It was, and you had their stormtroopers with them and stuff like that. I remember having a really good time at Public Enemy. But yeah, that was a great era. I mean, that whole breakdancing. But unfortunately, the song you're bringing up, Call of Duty God, I don't recognize it at all. I have no idea what that is, like, for the whole life of me, not even a little bit. All right, next up, Richard Cuts writes, "Hey, John and Rob." Rob's obviously not here right now. Have you seen the film Pig starring Nick Cage? I have not. I'm hearing nothing but great things about it, and I'm going to watch it for sure. I just saw it, and it's one of the best films of the year, in my opinion. Cage and writers and director Michael Sarnowski and Vanessa Block deserve award nominations for this film. Your thoughts? I can't give my thoughts on it because I haven't seen it. But I am hearing nothing but good things about it. Nothing but good, positive things about it. People are saying it's the true return of Nick Cage. Personally, I thought the return of Nick Cage was him as Big Daddy in Kick-Ass. I loved him as Big Daddy in Kick-Ass. I don't know how that didn't cause Cage-assance. I really don't. Anyway, but I'm hearing fabulous things about Pig. I haven't had the opportunity to sit down and watch it yet, but I want to, because everybody I know I have not heard one person say to me, I didn't like Pig. And the trailer's fantastic, and it looks like a true return to form for Nick Cage, and I'm looking forward to seeing it. And I'll tell you when I do, Richard. I'll tell you when I do. All right, last one of the day, guys. We'll go to Detroit Dog. And Detroit Dog writes, 1 of 2. Hey, John, I'm going to have to disagree with you about Free Guy. Of course it's a video game movie. Oh, it's absolutely not a video game movie. This isn't a subjective thing. It's not a video game movie. Anyway, it takes place in a giant video game. How can it not be just that? That's like saying Hancock isn't a superhero movie. You just proved my point. Let's continue here. I'll tell you how you just proved my point. That's like saying Hancock isn't a superhero movie. No. Hancock is a superhero movie. What it is not is a comic book movie. Hancock is not a comic book movie. It is, however, a superhero movie, but not a comic book movie. So you just proved my point. Anyway, because it's not based in a pre-existing comic book character. No, that's what makes it not a comic book movie. Anyway, and just because Free Guy isn't based on a pre-existing video game property doesn't mean it's not a video game movie. It absolutely does. Anyway, he's a video game character in an actual video game. It doesn't get more video game than that. No, that's completely incorrect. And it completely... Look, follow me here. A video game movie is, because it's a completely different thing. Free Guy and Wreck-It Ralph are completely original films. These are absolute original films. They were conceived of, written, designed, and executed right from scratch as original films. A video game movie, and when we often talk about the video game curse, when it comes to movies, right? Is very specifically the notion of taking a pre-existing IP, much like a comic book movie. You see, The Incredibles and Hancock, they're not comic book movies. They're not. That's not the very different work of art. An adaptation is very, this is why the Academy Awards has two separate categories for screenplay: original screenplay and adapted screenplay, because the skill set and the art in writing an original screenplay is actually quite different from some of the tools you need to have in your belt to adapt something into a screenplay. They're two different things, and that's why the Academy Awards has them as two different categories. So we understand that we're talking about a comic book movie. That is the act of taking a pre-existing comic book and then taking that and its story and its characters and adapting that and transforming that into something that they can then present on screen. Some with great success, some with great failure. But in talking about a comic book movie, you are acknowledging that very specific skill set and that very specific practice of taking an existing IP and figuring out a way to translate that IP from the printed page to a screen. The act of figuring out a way to transform that existing IP, take it and adapt it and make it something presentable on screen. It's very different from an original work that doesn't have to do that at all. That whole thing of taking the existing IP, taking its story, its mythology, its narrative, its characters, and finding a way to take that, adapting it and working with it, and transforming it into a screenplay for a movie is very, very different from saying, oh, you don't have to do any of that. Just write an original story. It's a very different thing. Hence, you said yourself, Hancock is a superhero movie. It's not a comic book movie. It's a superhero movie. Wreck-It Ralph and Free Guy are movies about video games, but it's not a video game movie. That whole thing that the industry has struggled with for decades of taking a video game, a pre-existing video game, and doing that impossible task of taking the essence, the characters, the mythology, and the story of that game and working it and adapting it and transforming it into something that you bring to the screen as its recognizable IP and making a good movie out of it has proved to be almost impossible. All video game movies suck, and there have been very, very few exceptions to that rule. Very few. Most of them have found that transition from the video game itself and adapting it into a story you can put on screen. It's been nigh impossible. The first Angelina Jolie Tomb Raider was not bad. The first Mortal Kombat movie is absolutely terrible, but I love it. I love that Mortal Kombat movie, even though I totally acknowledge it's terrible. It's really, really bad, but I love it. I think a lot of people are in the same boat with me. Sonic the Hedgehog. I don't think Sonic was great, but it was pretty darn good. I thought it was pretty darn good. Jim Carrey, good Canadian kid, made the movie, but I mean, even just the James Marsden, John Ralphio, I keep forgetting the actor's name, Jason Schwartz, is that Schwartz or Schwartzman? Anyway, who played John Ralphio in Parks and Rec as the voice of Sonic was great. But for every one Mortal Kombat or for every one Sonic the Hedgehog, you can list 15 or 20 failed video game movies. Because that art of taking the recognizable, known video game and doing that translation of taking it from that and then adapting it and making it into a story you put on screen has been a very difficult code to crack for filmmakers in Hollywood for many years. And it ain't, everybody pretends like, oh, why can't they just make a good video game movie? Oh yeah, you do it. It's hard. It's hard. And therefore their success rate reflects that it's been very, very difficult. To call something like Free Guy or Wreck-It Ralph, I haven't seen Free Guy yet. Wreck-It Ralph is awesome. I love Wreck-It Ralph. But to call Free Guy or Wreck-It Ralph video game movies is a complete misnomer, misdirect, and it does a complete disservice to what actually are video game movies. There's a difference between a movie that's about a video game and a video game movie. Free Guy and Wreck-It Ralph never had to go through that massive transition phase. That whole thing of taking a video game property, figuring out what most people fail to do, figuring out a way to take that video game as people know and love it, take those characters, take that mythology, take that story, go through an adaptation and find a way to bring it to screen. Free Guy never had to do that. That's not what Free Guy is. That's not what Wreck-It Ralph is. They are movies about video games. Yes, Hancock is a movie about a superhero. Yes, but it's not a comic book movie. And calling Free Guy or Wreck-It Ralph video game movies, while the subject matter is about characters in a video game, they're not actually video game movies. There is a big distinction between just writing an original creative piece that isn't based on pre-existing video games that had to go through that impossible task. It's night and day difference. It's a night and day difference. Now, look, you can call it a video game movie if you want. I don't care. I mean, it's fine if you want to call it that. But in doing so, you way oversimplify it. You ignore what actual video game movies are. And you show some disdain for this incredibly difficult process that actual real video game movies have to try to go through, and so few has had any success with. So few have had any success with. So no, Free Guy isn't a video game movie. It's a movie about a video game. It's a movie about a fictional video game. Wreck-It Ralph is not a video game movie. There are a lot of video game references in it. It's a movie about a fictitious video game, which, by the way, after Wreck-It Ralph, they actually made a Wreck-It Ralph video game. But again, that came after the fact. So no, they're not video game movies any more than Hancock is a comic book movie. So anyway, that's just my take on it. Listen, you don't have to agree. It's totally cool if you don't agree. That's totally fine. You can look at it however you want to look at it. But to me, it's a massive oversimplification. It does a disservice to the actual adaptation work and why the history of video game movies have been so difficult of a code to crack. It just really undervalues and does a great disservice to what they actually are by just calling movies that are completely original in every way, shape, and form. They're just completely original, and trying to compare it to the adaptation work that needs to go on in an actual video game movie. Free Guy doesn't have a pre-existing fan base of millions of fans who come with expectations. This is what a Free Guy movie. I played Free Guy for years. So if you're going to do a movie on it, you got to make sure you do this. None of that is there. Wreck-It Ralph didn't have a generation of players who played Wreck-It Ralph, because it wasn't a pre-existing game, and come to it, oh, I got these expectations. That none of that is there. It is such an easier job in that way. I mean, making a good movie regardless is monumentally impossible, but it is significantly easier to do it straight originally than it is trying to adapt it. And I think the video game genre has shown that to be true. And that's why so few of the video games have been decent or good. So yeah, gonna have to disagree with you, Detroit Dog, but I don't mind that you disagree with me either. I mean, we all look at it from different points of view, but again, to me, it's reductive and does a great disservice to the actual real video game movies and how difficult those are to make. But anyway, that's just me and my take on it. I'm sure many of you agree with me. I'm sure many of you disagree with me. And that's why it's fun to have these conversations. So thanks for sending in your thoughts, Detroit Dog. And with that, guys, that'll do it for all the time that we have today. Now, there's still more to come, which we'll pick up on the John Campea Show tomorrow with me and Rob. From Nosferatu, USCMC, Gunner, Brand, Solus, and others. Do not worry, guys. We're going to pick right up there on the John Campea Show tomorrow. But for now, that'll do it for this installment of the companion video. Thank you guys for being here and checking this video out. Special thank you to all of you guys who sent in those comments and questions. Number one, because you gave us great fun things to talk about. But number two, you supported this channel as you did it. And all of us involved here at the John Campea Show, thank you guys so very much for that support. Okay, guys, that'll do it for me. Remember to do the four main things. Stay smart, stay safe, take care of yourselves, and please take care of the people around you. My name's John Campea, and until next time, my friends, bye-bye.